Commencing transmission. Engaging scramblers. Proxy chain initialized. And now, live from his hidden base at the Earth's core, the future ruler of Earth, Doomcock.
The Academy Awards have been a joke without a punchline for a long time now. A bunch of rich, privileged schmucks patting themselves on the back for virtue signaling their latest trending causes. The Oscar is just another advertising gimmick for films these days, a marketing tool like any other. Politics mean more in Oscar nominations than quality does, and the popularity of the producers and directors and actors among their peers, who's in the in-group and who's out, plays much more of a part in the selection of winners than excellence, which is why I stopped watching this annual farce over a decade ago. But every once in a while, something happens on the Academy Awards broadcast that wakes people up from their Oscar-induced comas, pierces the cloud of indifference that surrounds this sad charade. And last night was one of those times when Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife starring in G.I. Jane 2, and Will Smith stood up from his seat in the audience, walked on stage, and slapped the hell out of Chris Rock.
Or pretended to. There are many out here in YouTube land who think that the whole thing was staged. Ex-pro wrestler Rod Thunderheart in the chat last night on Pop Culture Breakdown said it looked like a fake slap to him.
Well, that's a possibility, Harvey. But I have something very important to say about this incident. I am furious about what happened, and I'm asking you all to please watch this video to the very end, because there's a very important principle at stake here. Something much bigger than the Academy Awards, or Will Smith, or Chris Rock. And to some extent, it doesn't even matter if this incident was fake or not. The simple fact of the matter is, what happened on that broadcast was a damn disgrace that makes me angrier the more I think about it. I will have a rant at the end of this video where I will try to make it clear exactly why this was such an intolerable disgrace, and I ask you please to bear with me for the next 10 minutes and hear me out as I make my point. But first, let's go over this methodically and address the first question: was this incident a fake? The ratings for the Academy Awards have been in the toilet for a long time now, and deservedly so. In an age of YouTube and Twitter, we can see celebrities cavorting every day, so the novelty of seeing them all gussied up and drunk on the heady wine of self-promotion and virtue signaling has lost most of its luster for modern audiences. Last year, viewership of the Academy Awards declined by 56% from the previous year, a huge drop when you consider that viewership was already on the decline. So it was a drop from a previous drop, from a previous drop, and unlike Folgers coffee, the Academy Awards are not good to the last drop. According to IndieWire, quote, "While Oscars ad revenue remains strong, its waning viewership represents a loss of cultural cachet, and that's what it trades on more than any other award show. When 50 million out of 275 million Americans, about 18%, are watching your show, as was the case in the late 90s, you are relevant. When 10 million of 333 million, 3% watch, as was the case last year, you are not." Unquote. In the face of public disinterest, with ratings declining by about 75% since 2014, coupled with the fact that the Academy Awards are still big business for advertisers, it makes sense that the producers might well stage a fake incident like this to gin up interest, to say, "Hey, looky here, we had a spontaneous live assault on the Academy Awards stage. We're still relevant. Talk about us, please."
A lot of people are saying it was fake, dude. I tend to think it was, frankly, looking at the replays.
Kinda like on Late Night with David Letterman, when pro wrestler Jerry Lawler slapped Andy Kaufman to the ground during the broadcast. Turned out years later they admitted the whole thing was a setup, although Letterman himself was clueless about what was going to happen. It was a legendary moment for those who saw it live, and very much in the spirit of professional wrestling at the time, and this is proof that these kinds of dramatic stunts do happen in Hollywood. Eventually, the truth will emerge, if it is a fake, in someone's autobiography somewhere down the road, in an interview, an off-the-cuff confession, and until that point, debate will rage on. But I'd like to take a moment and address the question, what if this was real? What if Will Smith actually slapped Chris Rock for making a joke? If so, then Will Smith is a punk-ass little bitch, and this was a reprehensible act, and I'm going to make my point as to why that is the case here in just a moment. But first, let's be clear on what actually happened. Presenter Chris Rock came on stage to present the award for Best Documentary. At that point, Chris Rock made a joke about Pinkett Smith, who was sitting next to her husband Will Smith in the audience. Rock said to Pinkett, who has hair loss due to a condition called alopecia, "Jada, I love ya. G.I. Jane too. Can't wait to see it, all right?" Rock laughed at his off-the-cuff joke, and while Will Smith initially laughed at the joke, his wife kind of gave an eye roll. Then Smith walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock in the face. Rock stood there stunned at what had just happened as Will Smith turned and walked back to his seat. The following dialogue was censored from the American broadcast, but it did air in places like Australia, and so thanks now to YouTube, we know what happened next. Rock said, "Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me." From his seat in the audience, Will Smith yelled at Chris Rock, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." Rock protested with a stunned look on his face. It was a G.I. Jane joke. Smith then yelled back, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." Rock replied, "I'm going to, okay?" Afterwards, allegedly, according to Scott Feinberg on Twitter, quote, "During the commercial break, Will Smith is pulled aside and comforted by Denzel Washington and Tyler Perry, who motioned for him to brush it off. Will appears to wipe tears from his eyes as he sits back down with Jada, with Denzel comforting Jada and Will's rep by his side," unquote.
Okay then. Since you're assuming that all of this is real for the sake of argument, why the hell are they comforting Will Smith when he's the asshole that escalated things and hit Chris Rock? Shouldn't they be comforting Chris Rock?
In this, you and I are in agreement, Harvey. Look, if this is all real, and I'm not conceding that, but if this is all real, then there is no excuse for this behavior. It is never, ever okay to try and censor someone's speech with violence. Yeah, Chris Rock made a roundabout joke about Will Smith's wife and her hair loss condition, and yeah, Will Smith certainly has the right to be offended by that speech, but in my opinion, he's a punk for striking Chris Rock. Chris Rock is a comedian, and a damn good one. As something of a comedian myself, I understand how challenging it can be to dance on the edge of what's acceptable and what's not. Seinfeld once said, "I had to say the worst thing because it was the funniest thing." And that is a valid point. All comedy springs from pain, and in this time of global madness and misery and trauma, in this time when too many comedians are being silenced in the name of wokeness, when too many speakers are silent in fear of being canceled, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that adding one more impediment to free speech, adding one more weight on the back of comedians in this time of censorship and wokeness and fear, in hitting Chris Rock to shut him up, Will Smith hit everyone who gives a damn about free speech. Many people are shrugging this off as a publicity stunt, saying it was fake for ratings, while others are saying, "Oh, poor Will Smith, having to sit there and endure Chris Rock making a joke about his wife." Well, you know what, Will, you privileged, smug piece of shit? Chris Rock is a comedian, and it's his job to make those jokes. As a civilization, especially in these fucked up times, we need humor. We need people who have the courage to speak up, to stand up and speak truth, especially truths that are painful or push the boundaries of what's acceptable, because it's those pioneers who dance close to the edge and sometimes, yes, plunge over the edge, who at times cross the line, who hold the line in a free society. Every time Dave Chappelle stands up and tells the truth, every time Bill Burr offends people with a joke that's a little too sharp for comfort, every time Lenny Bruce goes to jail for obscene speech, or George Carlin mocks the 7 words you can't say on TV, then the line of free speech is held. The forces of censorship are pushed back, and free speech is reestablished for everyone. The principle of free speech and its practice. So when Will Smith commits an act of violence to silence a comedian because he's too much of a wimp to take a joke like a man, how is it any different than a bully slugging a guy in a bar, or a bunch of brown shirts trying to stifle dissent in a time of tyranny, or Putin invading Ukraine? Those latter examples are writ large, yes. But the principle at its core is exactly the same. Whether it's a pissy little slap by a couple of millionaires on the Oscars, or an angry mob lynching someone who said the wrong thing in their opinion, it all amounts to using force to silence speech that they don't like. Whatever it is, there can be no excuse for it. Big man Will Smith could have shouted what he shouted from the audience without slapping Chris Rock. That too is free speech, and had he done that, I would have supported it. But the fact that Will Smith took it to that level against a comedian doing his job, serving his function in this world, which is to say the things that people think but are too afraid to say, that is inexcusable and a damn disgrace. An affront to everyone who cares about free speech. And all those morons who are comforting Will Smith? Really? So you support the suppression of free speech? You support intimidating comedians, and by extension, you support stifling freedom? I am not exaggerating. Draw the line for yourselves. Connect the dots. Think about how enabling Will Smith in what he did sends a message that if you dislike what someone is saying enough, you are justified. You have the right to shut them up with violence. And before I said that it didn't matter if this was a fake, well, why doesn't it matter, you ask? Because it sends the same message, real or fake, a woke message at the heart of it, that it's okay to commit violence to silence speech that you don't like. If it was staged for publicity, the fact that Will Smith hit Chris Rock to shut him up and is not paying the price for it, essentially, tacitly condones attacking people to silence them and shows someone getting away with it. And in this age of hatred and tribalism and rampant intolerance, this is a despicable and dangerous message to send. And Will Smith should be punished to the fullest extent of the law, criminally and civilly, for this assault not on Chris Rock's body, but on Chris Rock's right to free speech and the rights of comedians everywhere. So suck on that, Smith, you punk-ass little wimp. You can't take a joke. Fuck you. Stay home.
Well, shit. When you put it like that, Doomcock, it's hard to argue the fact. Yeah, Will Smith could have absolutely registered his complaint by exercising his free speech by yelling at Rock from the audience. As it was, what's the difference between Will Smith and a damn jackbooted thug?
Only in degree, Harvey, but the two are the same in principle, using violence to achieve a desired aim. And that, in my book, is un-American and despicable.
Well, on that note, I would like to end this video with a Will Smith joke of my own.
All right, Harvey, go for it.
If they didn't have the video evidence, how would the police know for sure that Will Smith was guilty of slapping Chris Rock?
I don't know.
They dust his cheek and find the Fresh Prince. Get it? Fresh Prince? Fresh Prince? Too soon?
No, Harvey. I think, as always, your timing is perfect. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry and do not allow anyone to shut you up.
Ha 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 ha.